Let's get into it. 1, 2, 3. Let's get some more. Have your hands. Some more. Just give some more.
Do not adjust your screen. That is correct. This is, well, I didn't say anything to say it's correct, but I'll just tell you, no, you are not seeing things. Patrick is not here as of yet. He may not make it tonight. Also, I do not look like a ginger. I am not Robert Likarish. We'll give Robert a few minutes here and see if he pops on. Distillery life gets busy. But in the meantime, I will talk to you about some things that were going on. And we do have a brandy we can taste and make this a pretty short show. So this is My Whiskey Den. We are a proud member of the Bar Cart Co-op, which is a group of like-minded individuals that are here to basically to share the love of whiskey, love of spirits, good conversation in different forms. Some of those shows that are part of that are the granddaddy of the group, the Distillers Talk Show with Christy Atkinson and Alan Bishop, where they do a deep, nerdy dive into the world of distilling. They have fantastic guests that have very frank conversations about distilling industry, and things that's distilling adjacent. There's also the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute that Alan has that he answers a lot of your questions and puts some things to the test. Highly suggest you check that one out. Also, we have our good friends Drew and Kevin at the Bourbon Turntable, mixing the love of whiskey with the love of music. Bourbon Turntable does an interview show where they will do talk about the side A, side B. Side A is whiskey, side B is music. And they have been, like today's episode was talking about what were their whiskeys of the year and some of their songs and albums of the year. And next week they will have a live show for their whiskey of the year. And Patrick and I are scheduled to be on there to discuss those with them. We also have, if you have ghosts, you have everything, which is the paranormal side, not necessarily of distilling, but the paranormal side of life, hosted by Alan Bishop and his lovely wife Kimberly. I highly suggest you check that one out. There's some very fascinating and just kind of chilling stories, but true, told as true as you can get from people who are telling them. And there's a Washington County historian. His voice is very unique, but boy, he's had some great conversations on there. Along with all of that, what else does the Bar Cart Co-op do? Well, there's a quarterly show that comes out. It's usually hosted by Mr. Kevin Rose. They recently had one where they talked to the gentleman from American Mash and Grain. They came out with Borrowed Page. I think it's Release 1, Volume 1. That was a blend of Weigel, Watershed, Delbach, and Spirits of French Lick. That is actually still available on American Mash and Grain website. It'll never be repeated with those. They all sent a barrel. I cannot remember how many bottles were made. I want to say 400 plus bottles, might have been more than that. Were made and sold on there. And again, once it's out, it's done. And it's pretty tasty stuff. So we will talk about Mr. Likarish and Brandy Month, although I am no Robert Likarish. We do have a sample that we're going to go over with them. Ironroot. Ironroot's got a lot of things that have that they're have in the works. If you have had the great pleasure of visiting them, you most likely have seen or heard about some things. If you haven't visited them, what's wrong with you? That is a fantastic, I say fantastic a lot, but I do mean it. It's a fantastic distillery to visit. Some of the nicest people that you'll meet, from, Jonathan and Robert are great. Their new intern, John, I hope he's okay so they don't have to get rid of him. And Mama Marcia is, she's just the best. So they have been, they kind of have a love for brandy. They learned about brandy and brandy distillation, and they've taken things from brandy distillation and applied that to making the whiskeys that they make. One of those is the slow proofing down, or élevage, but also there's just that feel that you get off of it. And their whiskeys are unique amongst Texas whiskeys. It's really hard to it's kind of hard to describe the difference, other than Ironroot stands alone on Texas whiskey. A lot of great whiskey in Texas, but it is definitely not trying to be Kentucky, and Ironroot is not trying to be Kentucky or Texas or anything else. They are their own thing, and they do come across as extremely unique. So Ironroot recently came out with that it was the Sleight of Hand series, and it is their Sister Cities blend for the city of Denison, which is where they're located. City of Denison's 150th birthday. They did this special blend, and they have Denison's sister city is Cognac, France. You can, I'll tell you some of the history because they got a few minutes to kill here. Mr. Munson, I can't remember his first name, and I want to say Roy, but that's only because I've seen Kingpin way too many times. Munson went over to France when they had the blight that took out a lot of their grapes, and he had brought over some vines from Texas, spliced them in. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, and basically brought the industry back. So they have sister city with Cognac, France, Cognac and Denison. So the sister city blend, it's a blend of a 10-year Cognac with an 8-year brandy that Ironroot distilled in 2014. And it said a portion of the purchase goes to support their to charity for the Sister Cities program. It's unique. This is my first time trying it. They released it on November 12th. They only had, I think, 300 bottles. They released 150 bottles for sale online on Friday, and then the other 150 were sold in at the distillery itself. You can imagine it disappeared pretty quick. We have the lovely mule, Miss Shannon Hood. She picked this up, and it made its way to Wisconsin, and then made its way down here to Kansas City. So I poured a very small pour because this is all I am probably ever going to get of this. But we'll talk about this while we talk about some other things that we have coming up. So Brandy month, which is kind of interesting. November was Brandy month, but this is kind of how, well, you know, in my my way of saying things, you know how celebrate white girl birthdays, where some of them will say I get the whole birthday month. We've extended it beyond that. So this is white girl brandy month as far as I'm concerned, because it is bled into the next month. But also the Likarish has had a lot going on with the release of this. Plus we had to wait for the mules to happen to get us a sample. So we have this one which actually was really going to take place a couple weeks ago. So this episode talking about Ironroot, and then next week we actually have the Brandy Bash, which is going to have a lot of different guests. But all of the whiskeys that we have talked about are whiskeys. All of the brandies we have talked about over the last month and a half, and also one from Laird and Company. So I'm going to dive into this Ironroot Sister City blend. And if I remember correctly from my blurred writing on my sticker here, 62.7 ABV. And again, this is a blend of cognac and a brandy that was distilled at Ironroot. And I started making my nosing notes on this. And first thing right off the bat, I was getting honey. And then I was trying to remember the name of the store, and I think I remembered it. Those big freaking pears that people will get you and give you for Christmas. I think, is it Dean and DeLuca is one of those. You get those massive pears. They're just really dense and sweet. And so I get that. I get honey, and I get those big freaking pears. And then it's kind of orange, but not really, not a normal orange. And I'm trying to put my finger on what it is. And then a nutmeg on the nose. And it's really, I mean, it's Ironroot, so it's got a very nice viscosity to it because Ironroot. And yes, I'm using my Ironroot glass because I am a hoe for show. But I mean, I've never had anything bad from Ironroot. I'd say you can call me a fanboy if you will. I've been to the distillery a couple of times. They just make good whiskey. They make good. Their gin's good. I'm not a gin person. But this brandy, dear God. I mean, the nose on this, it feels thick and gelatinous on the nose. Harry and David, thank you very much, Miss Emily. Okay, so that's enough of the nosing out here. I am going to try a sip of this, and then we'll work on this very short episode, very short and very special episode of My Whiskey Den. Oh boy. There's just a allspice stewed fruit. And wow, I mean, it just, the spices, the spice in the fruit, and then it doesn't dissipate. It spreads, and it gets that familiarity with Ironroot that it is, there's a feeling with Ironroot that I get that it's a little different, and it carries across where it just has, you might have flavor and spice, but then it just tends to go and just become part of you. And there's not a single thing that's wrong with that. And I'm going to go look for the couple of folks that are in the chat here. We'll go and see. Spencer, headphone issues. Okay. Well, he'd had Ironroot. Yeah, I would agree. I cannot remember if I've tried it. Both times that I've been down there, I got to do some tasting in the back barrel room. And to be honest, after 6 or 7, you kind of forget which ones that you've tried. And, but it's really good. I don't think they could screw something up if they tried. And if they, cause I don't know, there's a level of giving a shit, and I'm not saying other people don't, but there is just a certain thing with any kind of craftsmanship. When someone is a craftsperson, there's just a difference in the level of their work. They're not just making something; they're putting basically putting part of themselves into what they're making, and I do get that a lot with the Ironroot stuff. That it is just if you were talking about fine woodworking, you would just have a better surface, better fit and finish, better grain selection as far as the grain direction and the wood. There would just be so many other things and details and touches because they're just putting that level of detail in what they're doing. Robert, I'm sorry you're not here to hear all of this. It's just too bad. Jesse, you are right. And sorry, I am not Robert Likarish. We're waiting. I don't think Robert's going to make it tonight, so we will make this a short and very special episode. Yes, absolutely. And definitely, I'll say it to everybody, go visit Ironroot. First of all, go try to find Ironroot. They've had a good problem is that they're selling every single thing that they make. The whiskeys anyway, maybe not the gin and vodka, or the moonshine, but they're selling out all their stuff for good reason, because it's really good. They're winning awards. Why? Well, because they deserve it. They've got quite a following, people wanting to get their stuff. Why? Well, again, because they deserve it. And the brothers are just, they're just killing it. So I'm going to add to my notes on here, my tasting notes on this, but this Sister Cities, I'm going to suckle on this for a little bit more and tell you of some upcoming stuff that we have. Like I said, next week we do have the Brandy Bash. Then we will be doing towards the end of the year our whiskeys of the year. And what was the other one we were talking about doing? I don't know. That'll come to me in a minute as I'm I'm talking through this. But we have to figure out our whiskeys a year and how we're going to handle that one. That'll be really interesting. And Jesse, KC Metro, are you in the KC Metro, Jesse Page? Ironroot, I have asked them about that. And, they had early on, they had the agreement with Total Wine. And what they had told me was that there would not be a Total Wine in Kansas City because there is or was a liquor store that had that name, even though it was not a Total Wine. And because of that, Total Wine would not be in Kansas City. I have not talked to anyone at Total Wine to confirm that. But that's who was getting the bulk of their stuff was Total Wine. So I think, obviously you can get it Total Wine in St. Louis. I can get it Total Wine in Minneapolis. I think it's up in Wisconsin, but not necessarily a Total Wine. But some people are only getting like Harbinger, the XC. But yeah, distribution is, again, it's kind of a problem. But mules happen. So, and I actually do have to make a trip to Ironroot at some point here because they have 2 bottles waiting for me because Texas won't ship because Texas, well, we'll get into the laws. They're horse shit. Yeah, when the whatever they're called, the package lobby, package industry or whatever, the ones that package store lobby, they're the ones who are causing all the problems with the selling of liquors and certainly the distribution of the liquor. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Because again, you can go to that distillery and you can only buy, I think, 2 in 30 days in Texas. But in the case of Ironroot, you can leave your car parked at Ironroot. You can walk, 70 feet to the liquor store right there. I could fill my whole freaking car up with liquor and nobody cares. But God forbid if I buy more than 2 bottles in 30 days from a distillery because I'm apparently going to hurt something. It's really ridiculous. But yeah, Jesse, it's a good question. Honestly, it's worth the trip. 7.5 hours to Denison for me, and I'm right in the center of Kansas City. Easy trip. There's a hotel less than a mile away, a Hampton. Pretty easy to jump over there, and if you went, you go a little further. I don't know, not quite an hour, I think, around an hour-ish to Dallas, and then hit some of the big stores there, like what is it, Specs, and oh gosh, I wish I could remember that. There's a store, there's a liquor store in the north part of Dallas that they do a pretty good job of getting single barrel picks, and they were getting a lot of barrel picks of spirits of French lick when other people weren't, which was kind of interesting. They had some what they have, like Whiskey Witch and a couple of other ones that nobody else could get, but those single barrels were sent down to this liquor store in north part of Dallas. Yeah, I'd say distribution. I hope you don't work for a distributor, but because distributors are part of the problem. But again, everything Ironroot makes, they sell, which is, I guess, it's a good problem to have, but not if you're trying to find something. Or you could always reach out, and since it would be a hand. I don't want to say a hand. Nothing with hands. Reach out and maybe we can meet up sometime and drop off some samples. So let's see. Spencer, no, it's not Mirage. I have to think of that. It's on the north end of it, and I cannot. I wish I could remember the name of it. I went to it, and man, they had a ton of single barrels. It's just of a lot of different things, but they had surprisingly a bunch of spirits of French lick, which, as you can tell, I'm a fan. Anyway, I'll give you my final thoughts on this, and I actually will call this one short. And I'm sure we'll be rescheduling with Mr. Robert to get him on there. And, Jesse, if you tune back in, maybe Robert can answer that question as far as that, because he knows where everything's getting distributed. But yeah, they sell everything they make already. Wow. I wouldn't peg this blindly. I wouldn't peg this as a brandy. But wow, it's just really good viscosity. And again, it's got the iron root punch of flavor, and then it just kind of takes over and goes. Once again, killer. They nail it as always. And sadly, this is probably all I will ever see of it. So I will be savoring the hell out of it. But well done once again. And so we'll cut this short. It's definitely our shortest episode. Oh, before I forget, we had Chef Paul Neyman's on there last Monday, a couple days ago. And we had talked about these 2 recipes, the candied bacon, which was really simple, sweet, easy to go, literally sweet, pretty cool. We talked about the ricotta or ricotta, however you want to pronounce it, garlic smash dip that we made. I'd said on there that I was going to use the leftover of that and then use it in place of an Alfredo sauce with chicken Alfredo. And yes, I did do this. No pistachios though, but I will say, damn, arguably probably healthier than Alfredo. But yeah, that was great. Paul was fun to have on. I'm sure we'll be having him on again, but yeah, great recipe. And yeah, Nancy on Mash and Drum talking about, I saw the ad. It was just kind of interesting to talk about her whiskey and music. Just spoiler alert, Nancy did do that as a 2-parter on the Bourbon Turntable. I would definitely go check that one out. I'm not saying don't go watch Match and Drum. Please do. Jason's fine. Everything's cool. But there's a nice 2-part episode of Bourbon Turntable where Nancy talked about music and whiskeys, and she sampled whiskeys from other people that some that she hadn't necessarily had before. And that was really fun to watch her discover that on the fly. So good times. So anyway, with all of that said, thanks for tuning in to the very short solo episode. No Pat and no Robert. And you'll never confuse me for Robert. And that's not saying anything bad about him. Trust me. Neil, hi. Sorry, we're cutting this one short because I'm solo. We've already tasted everything. Too long, didn't read version. Ironroot Brandy, good. And you can't buy it unless you find it on secondary. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in for this. Jesse, reach out. Let me know. We can probably do some Ironroot samples. Get them your way without using people in trucks, because that's illegal, and don't do that. Don't ever do that. That's bad. But thank you again. And we will hopefully see you guys Monday when we have a bunch of guests on for the Brandy Bash. I have no idea who all is coming in. I do know Shannon Hood's supposed to jump in there. I think Miss Kelly Tennille is going to jump in. Maybe not have French Slick, Dancing Goat. I'm not sure about the others. So yeah, we'll continue this on, and then we'll have our end of year craft whiskeys of the year, which are, wow, that's going to be really it's going to be fun. Thank you all, and as Pat says, it's not the size of the den that matters, it's the love of the whiskey. So cheers, everybody.